Hey guys, it is getting cold out. It is getting real cold. So I am all bundled up, and this may or may not have impacted my decision to read a romance novel to review for you guys that is set primarily in Hawaii, because that is where I wish I was in my dreams. This book is also a forgive me, mea culpa, if you will, because I did actually originally get this book as an ARC. I was not able to review it at the time, but I still had enough interest in it and enough, I really wanted to go back for it. And so I am doing that today, even though I read a library copy, and you also can get this anytime you're interested from your local library or bookstore, however you get your books, anytime you want. So the book that we're talking about today is called Not Safe for Work by Nisha J. Tooley. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. I am not sure. This is a story that, is it a romance? Yes. But I think on a deeper level for Nisha, the author, it is functioning as a love letter to women in STEM. And that may override the romance a little bit in this one for me, but I just want to say up top that this book is clearly very personal to the author. There is a author's note at the beginning where she talks about trying to make it as a woman of color in engineering, and that is the same journey that our female main character in this is on. And yeah, this was just like a story that from the beginning just felt really personal to the author, and I really loved that. The actual story is the story of Tris, or Trisara. She is a woman of Indian descent, and she is trying to make it in a very white male engineering firm. She's been at this firm for about 5 years, and she has been passed over for every promotion that she really should have gotten, and she has watched those promotions go to white Nepo sons of directors or people in higher up in the company, whether they're maybe actually good at it or straight out of college and just being given the job. And so she's gone from someone who has felt like it was her mission in life to be really competitive and break the glass ceiling and show everyone in this male dominated world what a woman, particularly a woman of color, could do. And she's pretty burnt out by this point, because she's just tired of getting her hopes up, but also doesn't know quite else to do. This is a single POV novel, and that does go into kind of what I was saying about, I feel like this is more about a women empowerment story than necessarily a romance, even though the romance is real not safe for work, let me tell you. But you are eventually introduced to our male main character. His name is Rafe Gallagher. He is one of the white men who got a promotion that Tris thought should be hers, and his father is one of the directors of the company. So even though Tris finds him very hot, this is stressed repeatedly. Oh, she also hates him because he is a representation of everything that is just going wrong for her at this company, and that she thinks is going wrong in general for women everywhere in engineering. And they have a little bit of a rivalry. They eventually basically have to stop working together because they can't stop fighting. And she just hates him, even though he's hot. The inciting incident for this novel is that, so they are at the Chicago office of a essentially at least national, if not global, basically conglomerate of engineering offices. And every year this giant corporation has a leadership retreat for 3 weeks in some undisclosed location. And every office sends 2 of their rising stars to participate in this 3-week retreat. And so, you know, Tris and all her friends are like, doesn't even really matter. We'll go to the announcement because at least we've been told there will be cake. But they know that it's going to go to some Nepo pics, essentially. However, when they make the announcement, first of all, the leadership retreat will be in Maui, in Hawaii. And secondly, they have chosen Rafe and Tris to represent them at this conference. This shocks everyone, including Tris, and Tris is just not having it. She knows that she's been passed over before. She doesn't understand why she's been given this when it's very clear that Rafe and his cousin both thought that, or knew really in advance, or thought that they would be going. So she stalks into Rafe's dad's office and is like, why is this happening? And basically kind of extorts them for some extra perks, flying first class, getting them to pay for some Louis Vuitton luggage, because they basically admit that, that the company at large has been criticized for its diversity policies, and Tris has been passed over for some promotions that she should have gotten. And Tris is like, yeah, I'm gonna go, but if you want me to go and represent this office and pretend that there's diversity here, you're gonna pay for it. And they do. Once she and Rafe get to Maui, they discover that they have accidentally, it is not actually clear whether this was accidental or meddling on the part of the secretary of Rafe's dad, but they get there and they find that they have been put in the same suite. It is the honeymoon suite. So while it is very large and grand and has a beautiful view of the beach and everything, there is only one bed. So there's already like a really awkward situation there, some complicating factors. Tris thinks that Rafe is still dating a white woman named Hannah, who like they were basically like the picture perfect. They were both from very rich families who've been friends for forever. And basically like, you know, that golden couple that was always meant to be together. Rafe is always taking calls from Hannah, but you know, it's like something's clearly up and she doesn't know what. But also, Tris thinks Rafe is really, 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 really hot. So if she runs into him in the gym and he's got his forearms out, she is panting over them forearms. If he is walking around their room and he does not put a shirt on, she is just like, I'm gonna really need you to put your shirt on. The tension is high. Because we never get Rafe's side of the point of view, it is kind of really hard to understand him as his own person. You get to know him along with Tris, who, because they're staying in the same space, you know, this is a kind of like a slower burn romance where they take their time, they're talking to each other, they learn about each other, they learn to trust each other a bit more. And after a while, it becomes clear that Rafe also thinks that Tris is really, 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 really hot. And this is a problem for both of them. But there is some nice moments of conversation that are happening basically on either side of the day's events of the leadership retreat, in which Tris is basically having to confront questions about what she wants. Like, for example, they're taking a test to determine their leadership style, and there's a question like, are you a leader, a listener? I forget what the other things are. And Tris is basically like, I know every person in this room, whether or not they believe it, is going to say leader, because this is a leadership retreat, and even though they say that they're not checking our scores, like, they're absolutely grading us. And Tris is just like coming to realize that like, I'm so done with scripting myself to play by their rules, and so she answers listener, for example. And so it's a little bit of a parallel storyline there. One of the top executives at this company is a woman from whom Tris takes a lot of inspiration. She's a white woman named Diane. And one of Tris's goals over the course of this retreat is to get to know her. And I don't want to spoil anything, but that storyline also ends up being complicated about their different views on what it means to succeed as a woman in those spaces and what they are willing to do or not do to negotiate continued existence in male-dominated spaces. I really enjoyed this book less for the romance and more for, like I said, the clear passion that the author has written into telling a story about what trying to navigate these types of worlds is like for women, and particularly in this case women of color. While she's at this retreat, Tris meets some other women either other women of color but also white women who are also like talking about how their experiences are like similar and different, and again how they negotiate those spaces. It's not very deep into that, but they do have some of those discussions. The way that they are treated by other men at this conference. And yeah, again, Tris kind of having to like look at herself in the mirror and go, I really, really love this career, and I had so many goals for this career when I got this degree, and I have things that I still really want to do, but I clearly have to make some decisions about what I'm willing to give up, what I want to do, or how can I move forward being myself. Like I said, her and Rafe, I don't want to spoil anything, but again, she learns that Rafe is not the, stereotype that she's made him out to be. And once they start going at it, after like tons and tons and tons of the sexual tension, which is like dialed up to 5,000, those sex scenes are also dialed up to 5,000. Like, it's life-changing, stars explode, galaxies collide. They're written in a very like overly dramatic way that kind of makes them funnier than anything else, but they are very open door. And so honestly, I just found myself laughing my way through them because they were just like so overwrought to a certain extent. That can be an issue for some people. I thought that it was hilarious and I didn't mind. But yeah, fair warning if that is something that does bother you. Rafe, to me, in the end, and again, this is probably because we don't get his point of view, he feels like whatever the male equivalent of a Mary Jane is, or a Mary Sue, whatever that thing is, where, Tris has an opinion of him, but actually he is all these other things, and he's kind of just like perfect in all those other things, and like he has like conflict with his dad because he doesn't want to be the guy his dad wants him to be, but his dad's not a good guy, and so like he wants to choose the path of honor and truth and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I found him pretty blah as a love interest. So yeah, I'm glad that the sex is really working out for Tris. They seem very happy together, but I think that the real fantasy here again was this beautiful storytelling of what it would be like to succeed as yourself as a woman of color in this space, and to perform some smackdowns of men that I feel like any woman in a male-dominated field wants to do on a regular basis, but we mostly do it in our head. I am glad that I went back for this one. I did enjoy it. Like I said, the author's passion for the woman in STEM storyline really comes through. It was a fine romance. It was there. It was happening while the other things were happening. But I wouldn't say it's certainly like a very deep or invested romance. The weight was clearly put on other parts of the storyline here, but it does take place mostly in Hawaii. It's silly. It feels very women empowerment, like go get 'em, girl. So if that's the type of book that you want, absolutely, you can, like I said, you can go and get this from your local library, your local bookstore, however it is you get your books. I did eventually settle on a 3.75 rating because, again, as a romance novel, I don't think that it really did the things that I wanted it to in terms of really feeling the depth and complexity of like the relationship, the romantic relationship, but I did enjoy it. So again, this book is out now. I'm sorry I didn't get to the arc when it did first come out, but there's also value, I think, to going back to some books that have maybe been missed, because if this is the type of book that sounds interesting to you, I certainly don't want you to miss this one. And I hope you have some wonderful armchair travel with it. Thanks guys. Bye.